Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I recently came across a pair of small, what I'll call pond reels at a local sale. They're both, they're both very small in profile. One is a Shimano, the other is a Daiwa. The Shimano is the Spirex 500 FA, has a dual paddle handle, and it handles 2 and 4 pound test. Same is true with a slightly older version. This is a Daiwa Mini Mite, and same idea. The only difference I noted on this one is that we have a broken AR override switch and missing tag button up top, but otherwise the reel is operational. So long as you don't need to flip it into override, you're fine. I'm going to work on the Shimano today, and then we'll do the Daiwa for another episode. And I want to show you that even if it's a small pond reel, it still needs service and attention in order to keep this fishing for a long time to come. Well, we're going to take this reel apart completely, show you how it's made on the inside, the key service points, and how to keep it fishing for a long time. If you like these types of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That'll tell you when videos are being posted, and for example, you'll be able to see when I work on this Daiwa reel in the coming days. Well, let's get started. We're going to get started by taking off the external pieces and parts. And in a lot of regards, these very small reels are, well, they're just smaller versions of larger reels. In this case, you have a spool that has a drag stack inside of it. You have the traditional click ratchet and spool shim. And we're going to take these off so that we can get to the interior body. But when I'm taking them off, I make sure that I have a parts tray available so that I can keep track of the pieces and parts that I take off. This handle is got a through shaft to it. You can tell that because if you turn your handle and the button is moving on the other side, then this is a screw cap, and that screw is holding the handle shaft through the body. To remove that, turn that in a counterclockwise manner. That'll bring it over, and then a lot of the times I like to just screw the cap right back in to the handle so that I don't lose the cap. Shimano is kind of an interesting one. Their through shafts are generally square. Most of the others are five-sided or pentagonal. We're going to take off the rotor. That is held in by a lock nut here. That screw is removed. I'll put that into the parts tray for safekeeping. And then generally you're going to need a deep socket. Just have to find the right one. I keep my sockets close at hand. That way when the need comes up, I can just grab them without putting down the project. And let's see which way this one wants to come off. This one is going to come off in a traditional counterclockwise manner. And once I break the seal of that, I just kind of use the ratchet to take it off the rest of the way. We'll put that right next to that tie down screw. These off the table. And we can lift off and up and out on the rotor. Now the rotor, you do not need to take the bail assembly apart unless you're having trouble with the bail. I use a penetrating oil in the seams just to make sure that it snaps nice and free and easy. And you'd be surprised sometimes with sluggish bails, all you need to do is what I'm doing here, and that will free up any old grease or contaminants that are in the seam, kind of dragging down on the performance. Once the rotor is off, that goes into my parts tray. And we can see on this one now, we have a shim washer and a bearing that's holding your pinion gear in place. So Shimano has paid the same amount of attention to this reel as they would a much bigger, say a Sedona reel or something. And we're going to get the first look inside this after we remove the 3 screws. When I remove the screws, I like to make sure that, well, one, I have the anti-reverse override in the off position, just in case there's something under there that's going to spring. And this one's a surprising little reel. This reel has 3 ball bearings in it. So a lot of times you're going to find these smaller reels that are intended for freshwater or pond use don't have a lot of ball bearings in it. And that's one of the reasons is because they don't deal with a lot of stress. Some of those bigger reels meant for deep lakes and oceans and the like, when you're fighting a large fish, they can't stress the reel. And bearings help to make that a little bit easier. All right, I've removed those screws. They're all the same size, so they'll go into my parts tray. And when I go to reinstall, it doesn't matter where I put them. First look inside then is we remove the side cover. This is your first bearing. Sometimes they'll come off, sometimes they won't. And the reason why they won't come off is usually that the handle gets tightened down so hard that it winds up peening the shaft. In this case, we're okay there. We have an old style crosswind arm. Remove that. And we have a shim washer. We have 2 shim washers actually. This is the bearing washer. And a shim washer. This is a good place to tell you, take pictures of the reel as you work. That way as you come along at various stages, you don't have to worry about maybe forgetting where you are in the process. Let's see if we can get that out. I don't think we can. We're going to remove the crosswind block screw. This one's tight. It would seem to me that main gear should come out. It's probably stuck in the bearing on the other side there. I think that's exactly what's happening here. So if we just kind of work it, we should be all right. What we'll do here is we're going to just continue to remove that screw. That screw out, we can pull the axle shaft, we can pull the crosswind block, and now that whole thing will probably come out here. I did notice that there is a little bearing retainer here. I don't know if that comes into play or not. Kind of working this one sort of seat of the pants. Now if you wanted to get real specific and prep yourself for what you're going to do with the work, you can go and get the schematic. They are largely available on the internet, and well, you can see for yourself what's going to go on there. I think this is just a block going in to keep the bearing from coming out the opposite way. I don't think this needs to be removed here. There we go. No, it doesn't need to be removed. Okay. This is what you typically are going to find here is that you have a lot of old dried grease. This stuff is kind of puddled up here. I'm going to use a cotton swab to clean that up. When you do this, check the teeth of the gear. Make sure that they're all uniform, that they're not bent, and check it from both sides. Check the facing and then check this side. Make sure you don't have any warping going on with that gear. Goes in place, and then the last piece that needs to be removed is that pinion gear. And that's held on by 2 screws. And most of what we're doing here is we're doing some cleaning and we're doing some inspection. Okay, well, it took me a moment to get that out. What I had to do was align this carrier to the 2 slots here. This comes up and then this pulls out from below. We'll show you on reassembly how that comes in. Just want to take a moment to clean the teeth. Yes, my glove is off. I did need to remove that to kind of work through that little piece there. And now my hands are sweating so much I can't get them back into a new glove. So there you go. All right, check your teeth and make sure that they're crisp, straight lines, that they're not bent or otherwise damaged. Nice fresh coat of grease onto that. And then we have this assembly. It's going to go like this, come in from the side, rest that way. Then we have a carrier, and the carrier has an eccentric spring on it right here, on that inner sleeve. That piece is going to go into the groove in this carrier, just like that. And then this side goes down. So let's grab that. Reset that. Bring that in. Locate your slots for the mounting. And you can push that in and down. So that's how to reload this section. This is a sealed bearing, or at least the one side appears to be a sealed bearing. That can go on next. Then we can take those two screws that are your bearing screws, put them back in. So you can see, even though it's a small reel, it's a very high quality reel, and made of good pieces and parts, a nice design. One of the things that's absent is an instant anti-reverse. This has that claw kind of anti-reverse, which is fine. And then the bearing shield goes on here before you put the rotor on. Okay, we're good on that side. I'm going to oil the bearing on this side. We can do several things here now. One of them I'm going to do is take our axle shaft. I'm going to bring that through. I'm going to locate the crosswind block and attach the two of those. This crosswind block has got a V shape on it, or a U shape, that's going to ride on the channel over here. A little bit of grease onto that, and onto the channel. This is where I was saying I thought that the gear could come out independent of the axle shaft here, because it's a tough piece to do it the other way with the screw behind that main gear. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one and stuck along the way. I just had somebody ask me a question about a Mitchell 400 reel that they're having some issues with. If you're working on a reel and you have those types of issues, simply leave that question in the comments section. I will try to answer those for you. All right, next up we're going to put some grease onto the teeth of the main gear. We've inspected those just as we did the others. A little bit onto the shaft that's going to go into your other side bearing. We can bring that piece in and down now. Next we want to mount our swing arm for the oscillation. And then we have the little washer that kind of holds that in place. And we have the bearing washer, just like that. So we have crosswind arm, shim washer, bearing washer. A little bit of oil onto the bearing on this side. Bring Bring that into place. And that side plate can get closed up now. Let's take the opportunity here to put that on. Make sure you have a nice tight seam on the case. If it's binding or if it's in any way difficult to put on, stop and relook what you're doing. You may have something out of place that's causing that bind, and if you tighten it down, well, that could spell trouble. We're going to tighten down the 3 screws on this. One more to go. So even though it's a small reel, it requires the same type of service that its larger counterparts do. The process for servicing fishing reels is pretty straightforward and it applies to almost all reels. I'm going to take the rotor at this point, find the flat sides of the pinion gear, bring that rotor in. We said that this came off in a traditional manner, so it's going to go back in by tightening that on a clockwise basis. This is where having big fingers doesn't help. Just be patient. You don't want to cross strip this as you're doing it. I think we got it now. And I'm going to use the ratchet to tighten it down further, and then we'll put the arm on here for that last little bit of a turn. Once you do that, get your set screw. Now that set screw is going to hold that rotor nut firm so that it doesn't spin free and loosen up the rotor. That's in place. Next is the click ratchet that goes on, and then there's the spool height adjuster washer that goes on top of that. Before I go and put the spool back on, I do want to check the drag washers. In these reels, they're typically going to be a felt washer, or in some cases it's going to be a Teflon washer. Most of the time they don't expect folks that are buying this reel to service it. There is a spring inside there. First one into the case is an eared washer, so it sits like that. Before you go much further, it's your opportunity to clean. Make sure that the dirt is out of there, because top drag reels take a lot of dirt. All the line coming in through the rod is coming right over here with the wet line. This only has one drag washer in it, and it's a hard washer, kind of what I expected, so no maintenance required on that. And we have the keyed washer goes on top, and the little pentagon clip goes back. So this one's in good shape from a drag washer standpoint. As you might imagine, with the size of the drag washer and only being one of them, you don't have a lot of max drag in this reel. But as noted before, you don't need a lot of max drag in this reel either. Let's replace the spool. And our adjuster knob. And we only have one more thing to do here. Short of putting a line on it to take it fishing. Broken line might get rid of. That's just to put our handle back on. Now this can be a right or a left-handed mounted handle. It's all on your preference. And just tighten it down. So what have we done? We've taken the reel apart completely. We showed you kind of a little tricky thing on that removal of the pinion gear. We've re-greased everything after we checked to make sure that all the pieces and parts were good and didn't need to be replaced. That included the drag system. We showed you how to reinstall everything. And well, let's give it a ride and see how we do. Nice smooth operation to this one. The anti-reverse is working. Bail is working fine. Well, a little bit of 2 or 4 pound test line. This reel's ready to go fishing. I hope you've enjoyed that. That's the Shimano Spirex 500 FA, and this reel was made in Malaysia. I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us well. I want to thank everybody for watching, for their participation in the channel, for the subs and the like, and I want to wish everybody a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.